Hello and welcome to Let Me Talk to My Customer. I'm your host, Chad Counts, along with my co-host, Richard Tyler. Rich, how are we doing today?
Wonderful. How are you, Chad?
Doing great, my friend. Doing great, my friend.
We are still having a record cool summer in Austin, Texas this year.
Yeah, I had a phone call with someone in the Northeast today, and they were complaining about just how hot and the heat wave they were having. I was like, man, this is just wild times. We had a little bit of rain finally, not enough to break our drought or anything out in California, but
A
um,
little drop helps.
it's been and it hasn't been. It could be much worse out here. It's not blazing hot yet or anything like that. Although our heat tends to pick up August and later. But anyways, Olympics officially underway. I got my USA gear going, and you've got Argentina. Looks
I got
like
my Argentina gear going. We didn't plan this.
no, but why not? Why not? It's got to support the squads. So today we're going to take some time and do some updating industry wide, a little bit broader than just auto recyclers to start with, and just looking at the auto sector in general. And then we'll roll into, okay, how's that impacting us? How's that playing out? What are we seeing for the rest of 2021? So um, a lot of this is trickling downhill from back in April and March, when we started hearing the chip shortages and those impacts and things like that. Um, Seeing a lot of that, and that is continuing to play out. I think it's coming to a head right now, and then like we've seen in other sectors, lumber, otherwise, I think we're going to see the peak here pretty soon, here in the next 6 weeks or so. It's always makes massive news anytime an automaker says we're going to shut down truck production. Oh, okay, right? Like, we knew this production was being scaled back and other things like that, but trucks are going to be the last thing to go for these automakers. I mean, it's just the bread and butter and what they can do. So hearing GM saying they were going to shut down, and I think it was BMW was also saying they're going to be shorting about 10,000 vehicles or something like that here recently too. So I think we're starting to see they've addressed what they could, and now we're reaching that point this month here at the end of July where, okay, not in a great place, but the chip makers have all stated publicly, both from the Taiwan side and Intel on the US side, that they think another 5 6 weeks the current problem will abate, that they're going to be back to where supply is coming. uh, we're not having vehicle shortage per se here in the next month and a half, where they're still forecasting, though, um, trouble meeting customer demand, consumer demand for the next 2 to 3 years. They think that's going to continue to 2023 in terms of being able to scale up. Uh, Wider than the auto industry, they think the next domino to fall is going to be consumer electronics, phones, tablets, computers are going to start seeing some shrinkage in terms of being able to meet their demand, which makes sense. I mean, this is the biggest sector that probably saw rapid growth in 2020 and 2021 as people were working more from home, working more on the go, internationally too, not just in the US. I think the US had always had a large appetite for that, but I think globally, you started to see the number of devices per household really jump up. And so I think that the strain is still going to be there in the chip sector. That's never there, never going to go away. When this thing started out, we were seeing, maybe 25, 26 week lead times for them to quote the manufacturers in terms of how long it's going to take them to scale up. They're now at about 32, 33 weeks. So that's extended. It's still longer, but at least it's going, and those chips are coming back into play, and being met eventually. Now, the quality of those, are we going to see recalls? Are we going to see problems down the road? Probably, right? Anytime we have kind of the rush to get stuff out the door, there's going to be a compromise somewhere in the line. So I would not be surprised to see if there are kind of some delayed effects that we're going to see either in terms of part cycles and vehicle recalls and things like that over the next 3 to 5 years. I think that's going to play out. So that is leading into dealerships, and that's leading into lots and things like that, which is a tale of, there's kind of two sides to this tale. Dealerships, what we're hearing are, they are more profitable than they've ever been. You know, nothing is being sold under MSRP. They don't need very many incentives. They've got more customers than they do vehicles. So it's a weird time for dealerships. I would guess employee-wise, they don't need the same level of employees that they used to have. Meanwhile, their margins are tremendous. The margins on used are great. The margins on new vehicles are great. Being at a dealership this week, the service department was the area that probably is having staffing problems. They're not needing as much on the sales side, but keeping people in and getting people through and getting their vehicle service is still a challenge. Okay, so one last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rich to talk about, okay, what's the sales impact on our side. So listing wise, on the outset of the pandemic, new vehicle listings were at about 3.5 million new listings per month. And that was, I think, going back to April 2020. Once the pandemic hit, we saw an initial hit of that. So we went from about 3.5 million vehicles being listed, new vehicles listed, to 2.5 million. And from there, that's been pretty steady. We've been holding at about 2.5 million new vehicle listings coming out until the chip shortage. Okay. So once that hit in March, it's been on a steady decline in terms of vehicle listings. That is now down to almost 1 million vehicles listed. So it's gone from 3.5 down to 1. So we've been reduced in terms of new offerings and listings by about 67+%. So it's tremendous shrinkage, and you can understand now why vehicle lots are looking short, why dealers are basically saying you can't buy a car unless you can trade one in, why they've been paying salespeople to buy not new vehicles, but to buy used vehicles where they could find them. They've been doing everything they can to get inventory on their lots, and that's coming to a head. I think we're still probably, like I was saying, manufacturing is going to be 6 weeks out till the chip supply comes back, which means it's probably going to be about 2 months till you start seeing full manufacturing back towards where they want to be, which means what, maybe three months till vehicles are hitting the lot. So we've still got Q3 where vehicle sales are going to be light. They are down about, for the first time this month, or maybe it was June was the first month. I'm not sure which data they were referencing, but we were off about 15% from 2019 sales, so pre-pandemic sales. This is the first month we started seeing vehicle sales drop. So the dollar per unit is up, but they're not able to keep the volume up enough to meet those numbers. That should continue here for this quarter, and we should start closing that gap in Q4 to see vehicle sales starting to get back up to 2019 plus levels, I think. Okay, so that's my expectation. I think things are in hand. They will be improving, but just like the housing crisis and other things like that, what does that mean for our sector? It means to me that vehicle prices are going nowhere. They might flatten, but they're not going down. The demand is expected to outside this or outlast the supply for the next 3 years. Okay. So just like the housing market, where there's not enough new housing builds to lessen prices and meet the supply. Yes, I could see housing prices flattening, but they're not going to recede. If you're waiting on housing prices to recede or vehicle prices to recede, you're going to be waiting a while. The number of people that still want new vehicles, the number of people that still want new houses hasn't gone away. it might slow. Like it's heated up enough to where people are saying, do we really need that new vehicle? Oh, do we really need that new house? But as soon as it comes back from the peak a little bit, the demand will be right there. The customers are going to be right there. So I think we're going to see that ongoing. So for us, I think auctions, rebuilders are going to, obviously we're going to see people continuing to compete very, very heavy there. Used vehicles are still going to be bringing a premium. Rebuilding vehicles are still going to be, I think, very in demand. And then lastly, I think people are going to be really fixing cars, almost like with back to cash for clunkers, where there's going to be, until we have a program like that, I think we're going to see the age of vehicles really start extending to those numbers. I think we're going to see people keeping vehicles on the road 13, 15 plus years, and that number is going to really extend to the point where maybe they're considering repairing vehicles at a cost that exceeds the value of the car, because the jump to get a used car or a new car is going to be so much wider than it used to be, that the net effect of them paying more for parts and more for the repair is going to hold up. So I would expect to see more demand for our 2000, 2005, 2010 vehicles continue to be repaired, where previously they would have been turned in and people have been looking for new or used vehicle purchases. Okay. I think that's going to continue at least the next 2 to 3 years. Would not be surprised if some other sort of program comes out of cash for clunkers sort of thing. Obviously that's pure speculation on my part, but I think some of the same factors that were leading us to that in 2008 are there over the next 2 to 3 years. So that's the cycle I see right now. It's great to be in used. It's great to be in our sector. And we're really going to have to change our tune in terms of thinking that customers aren't going to be willing to pay that. There's going to be a lot of strategy. They might be dissatisfied, but we're going to be far from the least dissatisfying option. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to turn it back to Rich. Give us the rundown of what you think you're going to be seeing. If your internet holds up. You've been kind of freezing up, I think, on my end.
Yeah.
So hopefully it keeps going. But what are you seeing on the sales end, and what they need to be prepared to overcome the objections of their customers?
Yeah. And so, look, all of these market kind of irregularities that you've been talking about do in some way manifest themselves on the sales counter. And in my conversation with salespeople and with owners just these last couple of weeks, they're having to deal a lot with delays on parts. And these are on reman parts associated with their trading networks. And I think salespeople need to be prepared for it, and they need to be able to explain it to their customers in a way that makes sense to them. And so really just these last couple of weeks, I mean, I've been working with a lot of sales teams about making sure that they're saying things like, look, due to stressed supply lines, I can get this part to you in 5 business days. Would that work for your schedule? Just to remind their customer that, look, this is not a normal time, but this is what normal is for us right now. Not necessarily making excuses, and being very clear about what their customers should expect. In my discussion with some owners, I have heard a lot of salespeople over-promising. If their customer was used to getting the part in a maximum of 2 business days, unfortunately still promising that when knowing they can't necessarily deliver on it. And that does not, that's not beneficial for the salesperson. It's not beneficial for the yard. It's not beneficial for the customer. And just reminding teams that we can't be over promising and under delivering.
Yeah. And they really need to be selling on the objection and spending their time of, what are the customer's other options, more so than ever before. I mean,
exactly.
Typically, we're the best price.
Well, asking their customer things like, have you been able to find this? If you have, how long was it going to take from that other source? Those type of things.
Sure. And even on the retail front, what is this vehicle to them? Are they turning it in? Are they between this and buying another? Man, I don't want to spend 2,000 on that motor, and then I got to spend another 1,500 to install it. Okay, how much is it going to cost you to buy a used vehicle right now? Have you looked at the used vehicle? So I understand, it's not where you want to be. It's also the supply chain is limited in what their options are. And that's part of the reason why we're doing this industry update. I would say most of the time, our salespeople don't have to be that broadly knowledgeable about all the different supply chain, and there's enough to sell off our part that we have it, how long it takes to not need to go in depth there. And we're going to, if we sell it that way, we're going to be backed into a corner where we feel like we're disappointing our customers. I can't tell them 5 days, or I can't tell them it's this much, or they'll never buy it because it's a 05 vehicle and it's worth more than the car. It's like, stop thinking in your own silo of what's going on for you. Start thinking more for the customer and bringing the customer's perspective into play. Where are you at? What are you thinking? What are your options? Have you been able to find this? All those sort of things. I guarantee if you spend any time investing into what their other options are compared to us, we are still far better. But it's not necessarily going to be as cut and dry. We're going to meet all their expectations. No. But if we realize that, hey, better is better than best, right? What we have is better than what their other options are. That's what we're selling. Not that we have everything perfectly. And surprisingly, we've been hearing that even trailer systems and trading groups are having a really increased weight right now too. So that's abnormal for us, especially in the summer. Typically maybe winter, it's tough to get trucks out, different things like that. We're having those same sort of disruptions for us. But again, realize the context. There are trucking shortages, right? There are not enough laborers there. There are not enough dismantlers and parts pullers. There is labor shortages everywhere. And so this is a big ball of wax in terms of when do they need it. Obviously, they want it right now. That does not mean they won't settle for a week's wait, right? If that's the best option. They want it basically as soon as they can get it. And we need to realize even our extended times are still probably their best options in terms of as soon as they can get it. Okay.
Right. And so just to touch again on kind of one of your main points here for sales people that I've been mentioning to them for these last couple of weeks, we have to have that mentality of, hey, I can get you the part. I have a solution versus the solution that I have for you now isn't as good as the solution I could have offered you last year at this time.
Yeah, exactly. So don't fight those ghosts. Don't fight those ghosts of former expectations. Be aware of the environment and what's going on. You don't need to be apologetic about it. You should be excited that you have a solution. Having a solution is the name of the game right now. And then understanding the situation your customer is in is the other side that you really need to be aware of and diligent of. So that being said, don't take for granted sales opportunities. Don't take for granted buying opportunities with inventory. Don't take for granted good employees or opportunities to hire talent right now. Any and all opportunities when you have a solution, even if it's not ideal timing, even if it's not ideal cost, having the solution has residual value because the market forecasts for costs and access to goods or people or anything like that. It's better be long on any of those things right now because I think the supply and demand side is still going to be in your benefit here for at least the foreseeable future, at least this quarter, if not through the end of the year.
Sure.
And certainly to a smaller extent beyond that for the next 2 to 3 years. Okay. So anyways, hope everybody is doing well. It's hard to believe July is coming to a rapid close, and we are going to be I'm going to be in Dallas, Texas at the URG conference here coming up. Very excited to see everybody. If you're not, obviously it's your choice to make, but please get vaccinated. I am, my family is, Rich is. it's not a fun 2 days getting the shots, but it's so much nicer to be out, no mask, and enjoying life and enjoying each other. And that's ultimately what we want. We want everybody to get back and enjoy each other without putting themselves or their family in any sort of risk. So again, you got to make those choices for yourself. But we can at least put out the anecdotal evidence that we've done it. We're not magnetized. We're not seeing any sort of other long-term effects either. So not preaching at anybody, but I hope you'll consider it and do your due diligence and research. We want to be together at these conferences going forward.
Yeah, we do.
Be together, seeing everybody traveling and whatnot.
Sure.
So, anyways, wish you all the best, and continue to have a great year. I think our sales numbers are continuing to look great. And if you're not seeing that, always reach out to us. Give us a call. Find us on Facebook, Counts Business Consulting, our website, countsbusinessconsulting.com. And if you have any needs, questions, or otherwise, we are here to serve you all and look forward to seeing everybody in Dallas. So, Rich, thanks for another great episode. And everyone else, we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Take care.
Take care.